Peace, everyone out there. This is Jonathan Richardson. I hope everyone is doing well. Coming to you from my podcast, Elementals and Paranormal. So, this is something dear to me, peeps. I've been a lifelong experiencer, supernatural, spiritual things, nuances, just dreams, all kinds of ways that spirit has spoken to me since my earliest childhood memories. So my choice to open dialogue, to have open dialogue with other experiencers, most of them I have known personally. I'm looking forward to meeting and having conversation with more people as this grows, but this is my very first recording of me doing this. It's taken a very long time to work up the nerve to look at myself and talk about myself to an audience that doesn't exist yet in my knowing. So, yeah, I just want you all to know a little bit about me. I'm naturally introverted. I work as a massage therapist, loving father, a really okay human being. Nonetheless, the body of work that I have for you is impactful for me, and hopefully you all receive something from it as well. I'd like to introduce my first guest on Elementals and Paranormal. I'd like you to meet my friend Stacey Henry-Carr. She is an amazing person. I met her a couple of years ago. Long story short, I've had my first hypnotherapy sessions with her, first and only so far. And it took some turns that neither one of us was expecting. It immediately went into hypnotic regression, which has been that has been a major upgrade for my spiritual journey. So naturally, she would be, and I have so many incredible people in my life that have stories that I'd love for you all, for you all to witness their experiences. But Stacy comes first. The conversation was very awakening. That's the best word I can describe for it. It was awakening. You gotta pardon some parts towards the end and maybe some delay, but the conversation went well, I believe, especially being my first ever facilitating a conversation this way. We went over some of her experiences, her dreams and visitations, and a very, very, very impactful story about her and her grandmother and her visit to the school she was going to attend in her childhood. But nonetheless, that's all I wanted to say for now. I will do my best to sound intelligent. Being a little cheeky there. But nonetheless, enjoy the show, peeps. That's all I have for now. More to come. I have a handful of interviews, and I am speaking my way through this. Podcasting is new to me. I'm in the right direction. As this grows, I will meet people, and as I meet people, this will grow. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
So,
Tracy, how are you tonight?
yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad to be your first guest on what is such an amazing podcast topic and an amazing body of work for others to listen to and come across, because this type of work is hardly talked about. This type of information is hardly talked about. It's where people feel like they have to brush it under the rug or shy away from it. So kudos to you, Jonathan, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Of course. I have been on a lifelong path of this experience. Childhood, teenage, young adult, into my elder life, and I know for a fact how it has shaped and molded in aspects of my own spiritual practice. And I know I'm not the only one out there who's had these experiences. I had many conversations with many people over the years, and I just I'm here. I've heard the call a very long time ago, and here we are. And also, this is just I look at this as my own personal work as well. I'm here to learn from other folk. The guidelines to these discussions are based solely upon BIPOC experiences, not just Black American, but global. And we are original folk. Our experiences are to be honored and reckoned with. Okay? I think that's a good way to put it there. There's more in the intros leading up to the discussions, but yeah, I'm curious to know. I guess outside of the introduction that I read, I just give the people a few other tidbits of you and where you'd like to start. Just whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
About me? Absolutely. So I'm a I work as a
Mhm.
hypnotherapist, and it is through that work that heightened my understanding and really showed me how much more there is to me as a being and how much more there is to people. So, like I said, there's so much more to us than we allow ourselves to know. And it is through the work of hypnotherapists that has absolutely led me to see how much more there is to us as a being, because we are carrying so much wisdom and knowledge and DNA coding and
Mhm.
ancestral codings and spiritual codings inside of us on a regular, everyday, as we are going about our lives. We don't really give ourselves enough attention, give that enough attention, or give ourselves enough time to sit with that, because it's called paranormal. Paranormal. So
Yes.
anything that's
Yes.
outside of the normal, what do we do, Jonathan? Anything that's outside of the normal, what do we do?
Try to normalize it as much we can, which in some cases, normalizing it means, as you said, brushing it under the rug,
Yeah.
making it taboo,
Yes.
or creating some type of fear pocket around it, similar to like what an oyster would do to a grain of sand. It
Mhm.
covers and covers until it becomes a thing. And unfortunately, there are people out there who are still struggling with the items swept under drugs. And this is one of our platforms that this is one of the platforms that we have now access to that will shed some light, that will
Mhm.
and hopefully give people some type of perspective and normalcy and understanding of what gifts they have, what gifts we
Yes.
have as a BIPOC people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm gonna I take
yeah.
notes. I take notes so that I don't forget to hit a point, but gifts, that's you say gifts, and that's one of the things I run across. I want to share with your audience that as a hypnotherapist, sometimes when I go through a process with a client, the client will speak to their higher self. If they've ever heard these terminology, higher self, they'll speak to it's very in many names. Some people call it the subconscious, but higher self, over soul, it's just a part of who you are. And it's so funny you said gifts. And recent
Mhm.
times I had a client, and I mentioned gifts, And it was and I think it happened with you too, actually, I think, Jonathan, when we had our session. But I said, "They're gifts," and their higher self was like, "It's not a gift, it's just who they are." And I just that was so freaking cool because you know from experience that when we go into these sessions and the higher self or the oversoul of you, and even calling it a higher self is not even the truth of it. It's who you are. It's just a part of
Right.
it gets very indignant. It's
Right.
like, "What are you talking about a gift? It's not a gift, it's just who they are." So, I wanna go back to the point where we don't pay attention to who we are at our core because it was deemed fearful, abnormal, and all of the other things that is taboo, less than God, and all of the other things
Mhm.
that's put on it. And truly, all it
Right.
is, it's who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't we take it back to some of your early experiences? I don't know, maybe as a child, as a young adult, just wherever your thoughts and memories land, and
Mhm.
just share what you are comfortable with sharing.
Yeah,
Because
listen.
the s-
Go ahead.
the stories and the stories and the experiences are what we want to collect and give
Yeah.
others license and agency to share
Right.
because we're
And
not
so
crazy when we're
normal people. And
absolutely.
not just for them to it's for to remember, but for them to be able to I'm gonna share a few stories, but for them to be able to say, "Hey, I recognize something like that.
Mhm.
That's happened to me too." Because when I have these clients that come to
Yep.
me, that's what happens, right? They're like, when they share when they share things and I share things, and I was like, "Oh my god, so I'm not crazy? No, you're not crazy." But I'm gonna go all the way back to
Okay.
when I was about 10 years old. And I grew up with my
Okay.
grandparents, and my grandmother took me to a school that I had passed an exam. I lived in Jamaica. I lived on the island of Jamaica, and I'd passed my exam from primary school to go into high school. And you get to
Mhm.
randomly pick schools, and I picked 2 schools. I'd never gone to any of them. I'd never visited any of them, but I picked 2 schools based on their credentials, and one of them was called Immaculate Conception High School. It's a very popular, very prestigious back then. I don't know what it's still considered a prestigious school in Jamaica. And I picked that was one of my picks. So I passed the examination
Mhm.
with the points necessary to go to the school. So in the August, my grandmother, who I lived with at the time, was taking me to the orientation. So I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember it like it was yesterday because it a lot about it shaped who I am today. So we got off the bus, we took the bus, we
Mhm.
got off the bus, and the bus was on one side of the street, and we had to cross the street to go into this campus. So when we got to the campus, there were 2 gates. There was a big gate and a small gate. Small gate was the gate for pedestrians. And so I walked through
Okay.
we walked through the pedestrian gate, and instantly I started tugging on my grandmother's dress, and I was like I called her mama, and I was like, "Mama, I know this place. I know this place." And my grandmother is like, "No, you don't. We've never been here."
Okay.
Kinda like, "Child, we've never been here." And I'm like, "No, I know this place." And then, Jonathan, I started pointing out to her where things are. So I would say things like this. I said, "Right up there, you're gonna see a statue of Jesus." Now, I can tell you it wasn't a statue of
Okay.
Jesus, it was the statue of Mary. A 10-year-old is gonna frame things the way they know it at that
Right.
age. And then I was like, "And over to the right, you're gonna see a church." No, it was not a church. It was the convent, and it had a cross on the top. And then I was like, and down a little further, you're going to see this beautiful garden. And my grandmother stopped and she's looking at me because I'm giving her a tour, pretty much a tour. Like, I know this place. I'm 10 years old. I'm giving her a tour of a campus that we had been on for the very first time, both of us. And my grandmother stopped
Wow.
and she said, "How do you know this?" And I said, "I've been seeing it in my dreams." And my grandmother looked down at me and she said, "Wow." It's in her thickest Jamaican accent. "It seems like you have the gift. You have the gift." Now, I was 10 years old.
Wow.
You know what the gift was. What did she really mean by the gift? And it wasn't until later in life when I recognized my gift of dreaming, or the parts of me that is a vivid dreamer. And I think when we first met, I shared with you, Jonathan, that I was a dreamer, and the dream would come to pass. I would watch them happen the next day or in days to come. People I'd seen in my dreams, I would see on my path the next day, things like that.
Wow. Wow.
Was the seed that was planted for me. So the dreams had been going on all my young life and still happens now in my life now. But the seed that planted it for me to be accepting of it and to even be curious, more curious about it, is the day my grandmother said to me, "Oh, you have the gift too." And so my gift of dreams have always been there. It wasn't, and everybody who's my friend knows that I dream because I'd call them, "Okay, listen, I had you in my dreams last night." And, it got to a point
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
where they're like, "Oh, shit. Oh, she had me in her dreams." But because they knew the levity of my dreams, where something was going to actually manifest itself. But so my friends, my closest friends, my family, my grandmother and I, when she was alive, we used to trade dreams, talk about dreams, analyze dreams. So dreams have always been a big part of my life, but it was where I was comfortable. Listen to this. It's where many of us are comfortable in the paranormal world, because it's easy for me to say to you, "Hey, Jonathan, I had a dream about you." And you accept that easily, than for me to say, I'm sitting here and go, "Oh, spirit is telling me to tell you that." And so
Yeah.
dreaming was where I started. Dreaming is where I became comfortable, until I started stepping into who I am today and realized that, oh, a dream was just where I was comfortable, but there's so much more to me.
Very nice. I love the nod that your grandmother gave. It was so matter of fact, as if, she's had the experiences and there's others who she's known who had the experiences. And yeah, that's a very comfortable, and it seems like a very safe place to land there as a child, because how often would something like that be like, "Oh, yes, just a dream." It wasn't just a dream. It
Yeah.
was
It
a
was,
witness. Dreams are witnesses.
yes. Yeah,
And I love that.
grandpa. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my grandmother Josephine. Josephine was a Christian woman, but Josephine had gifts, deep spiritual gifts, that a lot got suppressed by her religious belief. But she didn't throw them out. We witnessed them. I saw them growing up. And that day when she said, "You have the gift too," what I've learned now,
Students.
it's ancestral. She had the gift of dreaming.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I'm pretty sure there was people in her circle who knew of her gifts, and they just, and there's a sense of wisdom there because they don't, we don't necessarily push these things upon our kids, but as observers, parents, we're observing our children grow. And once they start showing signs of things that may seem weird or unusual,
Mhm.
as an observing parent or grandparent, they'll tap in because there's similarity to what they've experienced, what we've experienced, and we see it in our children. So
One
and
point.
it's a well-known secret. Yeah, 100% well-known secret. I'm curious about there was something you said about gifts when it comes to gifts and older generations who, now let's just say a generation who was raised who had a grandparent who was enslaved or just beyond that era when our indigenous nature was still there. We knew that I'm pretty sure there is well, I know for a fact there are some back then who would cover their gifts, which might be an ancestor. It
Mhm.
might be a guide from some lineage, and they call it the Holy Ghost. Just covered it with that title. Well, that's just the
Yeah,
Holy Ghost talking.
yeah,
Knowing something rooted in and more elemental based on our lineage. But
yeah.
that was another way we shine through the church.
Yeah.
Holy Ghost. There was the
Yes.
prophets. There were the seers, the dreamers, those who came with their gifts and added it to the collective of the community, the church community. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean
awesome
I mean,
experience. I love that for you.
I grew up with it. I saw it. I saw
Hmm. Hmm.
my grandmother's sister Violet. She used to speak in what a lot of people call light language now, but she used to speak in ancient language and or what they used to call tongues, but she used to also get gifts. Um what Edgar Casey used to get his messages by going into a hypnotic trance where it's almost like he's asleep, and then he would get remedies, and he would get, what do you call it, for his clients. He would get, if a client came with an ailment or sick, he would get the information
Right.
on how to resolve it. Yeah. My Aunt
Dope.
Vi my Aunt Violet, my my grandmother's sister, used to do the same thing. I grew
Wow.
up with the
Wow.
stories of her being in a sleep trance, giving messages about how to heal, which herb and spices to go get from outside, what to mixtures to put together, and the messages she would give would be coming from, so she would say, great grandmother such and such is telling me to tell you to, and then she would go, oh, okay, grandfather such and such says we should use this and this. So she would go into that hypnotic trance without
Wow.
anybody putting her in hypnosis. So in my lineage, the
Wow.
women were powerhouses, were spiritual powerhouses.
Wow. Incredible. And not surprising at the same time. It's
Yeah.
a very rudimentary experience that we have that we just tap into knowing and unknowingly. Yeah,
Yeah.
elementals is definitely a part of our way of being because it comes from the earth, the herbs, the candles, the plants in the house, things, all of that is to me is categorized as elementals. I mean, the house plants that I have, I look at them every single day and I feel as if they're looking right back at me as
Yeah.
I walk past them,
Because
as
they're
I
alive.
expand into the home. Yeah, yeah, good stuff.
They're, yeah, they're alive.
They are,
Mhm.
and their life force connects with our life force. The longer we have them, they're just here. They're part of the family. So yeah, that was wonderful. Where do we go from there? What's next on the discussion block?
Well, do you have any particular question? Because I can keep going. I have some thoughts coming from the dream world and moving. I've moved past that big time,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, I definitely resonate with the dreams. That was one of the first things we connect. That's probably why we stayed on the phones for about 3.5 hours at first. But then it immediately fell into that category. Oh shit! Oh snap! This is something that I've experienced. Yeah, yeah. So you've had dreams that came to pass. I'm glad I don't have that gift of dreams and foresight because I don't know what I would do with it because I don't know if I'd be able to tell people. I probably would now, but growing up, all right. But yeah, I don't have any questions per se. I'll just kind of help maybe chime in a little bit or ask questions if I do have some. But
Yeah.
I just assume that the environment was supported
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
In
Was there
some way.
any no
In
roadblocks in some way?
in
Okay.
some way, because like I said, it was math sometimes because my I grew up in
Mm.
also in a Christian home, but I also grew up with complex religious understandings because I went to a Catholic school, Immaculate Conception High. So while I was in Catholic
Oh
school,
yeah.
I was saying the rosary because that's what we did there. And then my grandparents were like Church of God Pentecostal because we grew up in Jamaica. And it was a very interesting, very odd. And on top of that, I saw all of the spiritual elements that were
Mhm.
naturally happening from the people, especially the women. My great grandmother, who I only knew for a very short time of my life because she thinks she passed when I was 3 or 4. My great grandmother, I have slight memories of her and doing, very spiritual things. My grandmother and my grandaunt, the women, the lineage was very powerful. So I would just say to that there is a foundation there that we often forget. And even when it's muddled with other belief system that is more mainstream, like Christianity, and I'm not in any way, by the way, uh, going against or having any issues with people's religious belief. It's just that I know from myself that's not something I subscribe to and I know why I don't. But at the end of the day, all of those spiritual understandings a lot of times get muddled behind what I call the colonizers
Mhm.
and and
Yeah.
and so growing up in Jamaica and the island of Jamaica, we have all of these different cultures, but there is a strong African and Indian, Taino, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of those heritage that brought with them their own spiritual beliefs. And what happened is those belief systems
Right.
were suppressed and deemed dangerous or deemed illegal. And so when I'm growing up now as an adult looking back, I saw all of those spiritual things, right? But I also know that Christianity
Mm.
was a huge part in the household I grew up. So that's why I said somewhat.
Yeah.
That's why I said somewhat.
I
So
see.
what I
I see. I see.
so
Yeah.
so go ahead.
Well, I was going to just piggyback on the Christian umbrella, all of it, because the church that I grew up in was Pentecostal in
Mhm.
Connecticut. My father grew up Church of God in Christ, Alabama. Both of those churches have the element of surprise because I'm pretty sure every Sunday someone was in the aisles,
Mhm.
you know, shouting. We call
Yeah.
it shouting,
Yeah.
taken in by the Holy Ghost and some other cultures that I don't know of it would be being passing of spirit. or
Yes.
in some cases mounted. The spirit sits on the head and just begins to take over and start talking or just singing and clapping beyond what the no, it's not even beyond the normal. Because if you're in the house shouting, it's acceptable. Everyone knows that. Oh, oh, there she goes. There goes
Yeah.
sister,
Yeah.
or brother, someone, or the same ones, and it's particular one. Yeah, and they're just known to just catch the Holy Ghost.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just want to plug that in.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So I
right.
wanna
So
so what I wanna do is
I'm,
just
I mean,
kind
go ahead.
you can hear. I just wanna take folks to, oh, from that child that got that validation. It's amazing validation, and I don't remember it being something that I celebrated then because I didn't understand it then. But as I became older and those dreams persisted and and first of all, the fact that being on that campus, I saw all the things that I saw in the dreams were amazing. I mean, can
That's
you
right.
imagine
That's
what
right.
that does for a child, and just the confidence of the dreams and then that manifesting in front of a 10-year-old like that, right?
So it was more than one dream that you had leading up to the visit.
Oh, what I told her is, I see this place in my dreams all the time, over and
Oh,
over again.
okay. Okay.
Over and
Recurring
over
dreams.
again.
Yeah.
It was a recurring dream.
Okay. Okay.
That
I
was a
love
recurring
those.
dream. Yes. Yes, that
I
was a
love
recurring
those
dream.
dreams. Yeah. Because when you wake up, you just when I would wake up from those dreams, I'd be like, okay, I had it again. It was same but different, different but same, but it's still the same theme
Yeah.
of being in the same place, a place that you recognize, even if you don't recognize it in the moment, you recognize it when you wake up and through memory, like, oh, okay, it happened again. Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Is
100%.
that something that is that something that particularly happens often for you? Reoccurring
Um,
dreams.
oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, up to this day, yes, and,
Mhm.
I and sometimes they're metaphoric, but they're still recurrent, trying to get me to get the understanding of a point. So, for example, I remember having a recurrent dream as an adult of me running around my childhood home, closing the doors and the windows. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I understood what that reoccurring dream meant and
Okay.
was able to decipher it as I was the young girl that felt unsafe in the home. And
Okay.
listen to this. This is how powerful dreams are. Right after I identified what the dream meant, within a few months or even less, I had a dream. Now I'm an adult. So the dream that I was running around closing the doors and the windows, I was a young girl. The dream, after I
Mm.
deciphered that, the dream that came next, Jonathan, I had gone back to my childhood home in my dreams as an adult. My grandmother, who had been deceased then, my grand aunt, she had also been deceased then, but they were the two matriarchs. And like I said, they play some really important roles in my spiritual journey or the understanding of they were in the dream and I was buying new doors and new windows for
Wow.
that house. Oh.
Wow. Wow.
So when I bought new doors and new windows, I no longer had the recurrent dream of me
Mm.
shutting the doors and the windows because now I had recognized and understood what the dream meant.
Wow. So symbolic to, say, a new covenant
Yeah.
of sorts. Yeah.
Yes. I really
Wow.
just want to say our dreams, if we pay attention to them, They're not just messages that could be straightforward. There's sometimes meaning they're going to happen the next day. There's sometimes messages that are metaphoric.
Definitely. Yeah, I do experience that similar reoccurring dream. Same house. My pops, he's been gone for 25 years. He's usually like in the bathroom grooming himself, which is what he did often. I wouldn't notice, like in the dream, I wouldn't, in the dream, in the moment, I don't know who they are, but it's a
Mhm.
familiarity. And everyone seems bigger than me. They're sitting
Mhm.
on couches and things that I'd have to climb onto. But like in the moment, I don't know, I kind of know who these people are, but I don't know exactly who they are. But when I wake up, I'm like, oh, okay, it happened again. I was back in the house that I grew up in. And it's choppy memories, but it does happen. I know exactly what happens. Or I know exactly what you experienced there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Pretty
It
incredible.
is amazing. And so what I want to do is like bring people to now and just kind of really
Yes.
encourage people
Yes.
to understand where we are now is to pay attention to the origins of the gifts that we always had that maybe we weren't able to really express them
Mhm.
because of fears or environment or so forth, or they were nurtured. And at some point we abandoned them for to fit into the norm. But the last 3 years of my
Norm.
life has been, I know, norm. The last 3 years of my life has been like spiritual boot camp, just spiritual boot camp. It has taken this idea that I have to hide behind the dream world, and it has reminded me that's not a gift of dream, it's who you are. You are, and you are an intuitive, and you can read a room, you could read a person even. And with that, it opened up. I asked one question. I asked little question, Jonathan. The question was one night I was going to bed and I asked, who am I? Show me who am, and I became curious. And that started a rabbit hole and a spiral effect of me discovering some deep rooted gifts that I've been carrying through from ancestral lineage. I had dreams of women that I don't know, but because they had on the church hats, I knew they were from my lineage.
Uh-huh.
And handed
Uh-huh.
me things, just they had on the church hats. I said, "Oh, they're from my lineage." And the most profound, all of those things happened, but the most profound that happened was last year, 20, no, because we're in 2026 now, 2024, where I woke up I kept waking up in the spring of 2024, hearing myself in my sleep speak another language.
Uh,
And
uh,
I thought I was dreaming. And so I would hear it and it would wake me up. And then one night I woke up and I asked my husband, I was like, you don't hear me speaking another language? You should. And my husband said, no, I hear you snoring. All right. I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. I'm speaking another language. I hear myself. But at first, it was happening a lot. But at first, I thought it was happening in my dreams and I was just waking up into my dreams, waking up out of my dreams. So one
wow.
morning, one morning, I woke up and I'm laying there, that really beautiful space where you wake up and it's right when you're waking up. And I'm laying there
Yep.
and I know I'm awake, but not awake, and I hear myself speaking the language, and I said in my mind, if I'm not dreaming, I'm gonna open my eyes, and if I open my eyes and I'm still speaking this language, then it's actually happening. So I'm laying in my bed, Jonathan, I open my eyes, and the language is still coming out.
Still coming out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes.
So I look
Yes.
around. I'm in my bedroom now, and my husband has gone to work, so he, got up early, gone to work, and I'm looking around. I'm laying here by myself, and the language is coming out. So I said to myself, if this is real, I'm going to press record on my phone because my phone is on my side table. And so I reached over, got my phone. It's still coming out. I pressed record, and it's still
Wow.
coming out.
Wow.
And then
Do you know what you were saying?
eventually I learned how to
Okay.
ask, what does this mean? In that moment, I had no
Okay.
idea. But what I did know that it came with a lot of emotions. They were high, they were low, they were
Mm-hmm.
exciting, they were sad,
Mm-hmm.
there were tears, there were laughter or
Mm-hmm.
giggles and then I heard call the sound healer. And the sound healer is a friend of mine that lives in Arizona. And I was like, okay. So I called her and I was like, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I'm speaking this language. I just heard to call you. And she said, it's okay. And she said, give me a moment. And the language came out and I started speaking it to her. And then
Wow.
she responded to me in the same language.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that's when I knew I hadn't gone nuts. Because oftentimes, when we're experiencing any of this, what I call spiritual boot camp, or any type
Mm-hmm.
of enlightenment, or any type of awakening, we think we're losing our minds. And I remember I asked myself that day, am I going crazy? No, no, no. That's not what I asked because the words are specific. I said, am I losing my mind? And I heard very clear, no, you have found it. And then I said, what
Mm-hmm.
is this language? Was like your ancient language. Okay. So
Okay.
I so I came from hiding behind dream to waking up to a different language. But let me tell you a real funny of that was me and my family went to California in I think it was for my daughter's birthday in August of 2025. And my son is 24, my daughter is 16, me and my husband. So we're in one hotel room. And the next morning, my son said, you know how you always say you wake up speaking a different language sometimes? You were doing it last night. And
What?
he said, I woke he said he wasn't asleep because, the young folks, they stay up all night. He said, you and daddy were asleep and I wasn't asleep and I heard it and I looked around and I'm like, don't nobody else hear?
Wow. Wow. Awesome.
So the point is, there could be a lot of explanation for that. And I did get some explanation that I had a Kundalini awakening, that I was awakened, to my ancient understandings. Does the language still happen? Yes. I had it as recent as last night. And
Awesome.
so my husband did confess that one night, he did hear me speaking this language.
Okay.
So
How did he take it?
that's the beauty of having acceptance. It's
Yes.
easy, and
Yes.
maybe that's what you have to do one of these days, talk about when you don't have acceptance. How does that suffocate your
Mhm.
ability should be to carry those ancestral codes, to be able to, walk the path of some of your past souls imprints because we carry them. And he was just like, "Yeah, you it sound like," and he said some other language and he just kept it moving. He asked no question. It's me, what do you do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of my favorite activities is taking naps. I mean, the simplest thing, take a nap. Um, and it's like I resonate with that in between space, not fully awake, not fully sleeping. And it's almost like in that phase, time it's almost like time is up. We have to go back to this existence. And I gather those things. What comes to me with that is like last minute instruction, because we go off to, we take a nap, we go to sleep, we go off to travel to get instructions or to experience something. But when it's time to come back, it's almost like you're on a moving platform. There's another platform, and there's only a certain window that you have to jump. Okay, now, but before you jump, this, that, and the third, da. And sometimes it carries over
Yeah.
the dialogue. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah. 100%. But it's a
Wow.
beautiful thing that it carries over the dialogue because,
Uh-huh.
mm, um, excuse me,
Yes. Yes.
you wake up with a lot of amazing downloads and knowing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
because oftentimes when we travel in our sleep, when we come back, we don't remember. And which
Right.
is it's okay because it's still encoded in us and we will act it
Hmm.
out. And but when it spills over, which it often spills over for me, and it's been spilling over for years, but this was the first time that it spilled over in a language, right? And like I said,
Wow. Yeah.
I went to spiritual boot camp, guys. I'm just saying. But
Uh,
it's wonderful when it spills over because and for me, when it spills over, I have to write it down real quick, or sometimes I grab my phone and I turn on the recorder and I leave a quick message of what is spilling over. So, people ask, yeah, I tell this story about the language. No, I don't broadcast what I have recorded. But that morning when I wanted to prove to myself that I hadn't gone cuckoo, I recorded myself because
over the ledge.
yeah, I was like, am I still in my dream or have I gone off? What in what's happening to me?
Yeah. 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 I've definitely heard other languages being spoken to me in my dreams. Like
Mm,
audibly, I'm hearing it, but in my head, I'm understanding
yes.
what's being said. That is wild. That is wild. I have one question for you before we wrap this up, and this is gonna be the theme to every episode, every interview, because everyone who's on here is gonna be asked the same question. I mean, I have my own interpretation or my own answers
Mhm.
that maybe someday I'll share. But this quest to understand this one thing started with these sessions with you, the sessions that I've had with you.
Yeah.
So look, yeah, it's only right that you be the first one to
Yeah.
be here and answer this question. What do you think is fear? Like what we know is fear. What do you think through your travels and experiences? Like, help us define what you think is fear.
Fear as a
Is it like an energy? Is it a spirit? Is it like a freak? Yeah. Just the essence of fear, the thing that we experience as
yeah.
fear. Like, does
Oh,
that make sense? The question?
it does make sense.
And there's no, and it, because there's no right or wrong way to answer it. You know what I
No,
mean? It's all
no.
what we gather and what we interpret as. Yeah. Yeah.
Fear is your old story.
What do you think?
Did you hear me just now? I think we had a little lag. Fear is your old story. Fear fear
It
is
was.
not a fear is not a present moment
Okay.
thing. Can you hear me clearly now?
I can. I can.
Okay. Fear is not a
I can hear you.
present. Okay.
And
Fear is not a present day thing. Fear is an old story. And we carry fear inside
mm,
of us. We carry imprints of fear inside of us. And this is my opinion, and these things come from lineage, ancestral lifetimes.
wow. Okay. Okay.
If you stay present, there is no fear.
I love that. I love that. It's like a primal frequency that we still have to experience in order to elevate from it. Something down that line.
I don't think we have to experience it. I think we just remember it. I think our bodies remember it. I think our cells remember it. I don't think we have to experience it. I think
Okay.
we can choose not to experience it. And I think as we remember who we are, the truth of who we are, and acknowledge it and accept it, and we won't be bogged down by the frequency of fear. And keep in mind, we normally speak in terms of high frequency, low frequency. It's just a frequency, but it's a frequency that we can choose to switch off or on.
Yes. Great. Good answer. I love that. Yeah, thank you for that. We have to have you back on at some point. Maybe co-host or at some point. Well, not co-host, but definitely we have to have you back on because these conversations, I mean, I mean, we can, I'm pretty sure we just scratched the surface. I haven't even begun to
Yeah.
scratch the surface. I mean, because we have lifetimes of experiences that could be shared or could be remembered. I mean, yeah, I just want to thank you so much for this um, wonderful conversations. As always, yeah, we have to close it up now because I have some obligations to take care of. But
Mhm.
definitely, you're always going to be welcome to come back. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And also, thank you for what you do for the people out there. You know,
Absolutely. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
keep
Maybe
bringing
next
them
time.
people out that fair frequency as you do. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Next time I'll share a little bit more about that and, experiences you
Mhm.
and I have had together.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you so much for having me, and
Of course.
we'll do this again.
Thank you. All right. Good deal.